I hear you.
Raise them knuckleheads you just saw.
Yeah, yeah. They look like you.
Man, listen, all of them, all my kids do. It's the crazy part. It ain't crazy, but you know, you get the drift.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right, we live. Let me make my screen big. All right, welcome to another edition of Full Court Press with Coach J. I have one of my former teammates, assistant coach at SMU, Yaphett King, on. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about himself here shortly, but I'm going to ask him the funny question that I start everybody out with. Yaphett, as a coach or a player, what was that first butt whooping you took that made you realize you had to work at it, whether it was coaching or playing or both?
I'm gonna use probably experience that both of us can relate to a little bit. I remember the year that you were sitting out, and the year that was my first year at Cal State Fullerton, transferring from junior college to Division One, and just how tough that process was, and how tough, Coach was on us.
Yeah.
Trying to get us to the point where we could, be competitive and compete at the top of our league, and just that whole transition, that whole process was probably the toughest one I had of my life. I remember we were, I think, lifting weights at 6 a.m, and then we were conditioning right after at 7. We would have class, and some days we'd have individuals later on that afternoon. And that was probably the toughest experience I had in my life. And, usually just walking out on the court, I always been good enough. It was the first time I really had to fight, compete, and battle to be able to get and earn all the minutes that I needed.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your coaching journey. I know that you went back to Redlands Community College where you played at, and you were very successful there as a head coach. But tell us all about your coaching journey and what made you get into coaching, because I know you played a little bit overseas too.
Yeah, I know for me, the first portion of that, getting into coaching for me was a passion for me, because I just remember life was pretty tough for me growing up as a kid, single parent household, bounced around a lot. My journey was pretty different from a lot of people's journey to get to college athletics, but nonetheless, we all got to this point and we all enjoyed a certain amount of success. And I know for me, I got into coaching because I wanted to help young people. I wanted to help young guys like myself who didn't know, to be able to kind of point them in the direction and give them an opportunity and them a chance to be able to make it in life, and to be able to tell them all the things that I never knew that I wish somebody would have told me in my life, And so for me, coaching has been more of a mentorship role. I love the competition and I love the basketball portion of it, but the biggest portion of it for me is helping these young people grow and mature and be the young men that they're supposed to be. I started out as a junior college assistant coach at Redlands Community College for my former coach, Steve Eck, who's now the head coach at Hutchinson Community College. I went with him to Cali County for a year, and I was fortunate enough at the end of that year to be able to become the head coach at Redlands Community College. And I was there for 4 years. Had a lot of guys move on to Division One. Learned a lot about myself as a player, as a coach, through all the ups and downs that we had there. And from there I went on Division One, and I was at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and I worked for a guy by the name of Willis Wilson. And Willis was a great mentor and friend to me. And he was somebody that taught me a lot about the business and the inner workings of it, some stuff that I didn't necessarily know about it. And from there, we learned a lot, we grew a lot, and we had some very good, successful years there. And from Corpus Christi, I went on to Louisiana Tech, and I was there for 3 years at Louisiana Tech and had a great run. And I worked for a guy by the name of Eric Conkle, and he was outstanding as well too. And now I'm here at SMU. I like to joke and say the worst boss that I ever worked for was myself when I worked at Redlands, and I was the head coach.
Who's the head coach at SMU right now?
I work for Tim Jankovic, and he's been great too. I really enjoyed being here working for him as well too.
So who was your biggest coaching influence that, I know everybody has mentors along the way, whether it's friends or coaching, but who would be your biggest coaching mentor?
I probably would say it would be Willis, just the friendship that he and I shared as with me working for him was something that extended off the court too as well. We had some very candid conversations about just a lot of different things and just a lot of insight about stuff. And he was great for me. He had been a coach since 1992. He used to be the former head coach at Rice University. And so he had a lot of experience about coaches. And more than anything, he invested and poured into me as well too, which is something that you don't get everywhere. It's something I really appreciate, and I always respect him for that.
So with that, I'm gonna start talking about culture a little bit. I want to talk
Hmm.
about all your stops just a little bit, but I want to start with Redlands because I know when I got to Cal State Fullerton, one of the things I learned about you, because me and you and Hardy were pretty close.
Hmm.
One of the things I learned about you was that you were very successful as a player at Redlands. Y'all were
Hmm.
always good. I know you were good. You were successful as a coach.
Hmm.
Talk about going back into that environment and trying to build your own culture because it was a championship culture. So talk about how you had to either sustain that culture or change the culture to fit you so that you were successful.
Well, I think one of the things that was really different going back to Redlands is that there was a coach in between Coach Eck and myself getting the job. And so the culture had changed dramatically overnight from when I was there because anybody knows anything about junior college, the scholarships, you don't have to keep anybody if you don't want to. When guys come in there, you can literally move everybody on and you can bring a whole new group of guys in, is which what happened. And therefore, like just the whole dynamic and the whole energy about what Redlands was not what it used to be. And so it was incumbent upon me to try to get it back to that point. And it took a little bit of time. Like it wasn't something that happened overnight. There were some trials, there were some tribulations, there were some things that I figured out. And once I figured it out, year two, we made it to the national tournament. We won 21, 22 games. I can't remember. But it was an outstanding experience, man. And it was a process for me that I'll never forget. And just the biggest thing for me is I wanted guys that were tough, that worked hard, that competed, and guys that had bigger goals. Like I wanted guys to have goals and dreams that were big on the basketball court, but also were big off of it. Because I think, you have to find out what defines you as a player, as a person off the court. And when you do that, it helps you become who you're going to be on the court because basketball is ups and downs. It comes and goes when it comes and goes. Like you can be in it 1 minute and out of it the next minute. I mean, as you know, like we both suffered the same injury. You had it in college. I got it in junior college. Broke our fifth metatarsal, and those things can get you off course and derail you so quickly. So I want you to know who you are as a man, who you are as a person off the court, because when things are tough, they're hairy and nasty for you, that's got to be what you lean on to be able to get to where you want to go.
So, okay, now let's go to each of your stops: Texas, Corpus Christi, La Tech,
Yeah.
and now SMU. Talk about how y'all built some of the culture there, because I know all stops have been pretty successful for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we caught up when you were at Corpus Christi because I was coaching IBL at the time. So tell me a little bit about each place where you built the culture, because that was your philosophy. Now, as an assistant coach, how have you had to adapt to the culture of the head coaches?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that I always, I was on, Nick, who was the GA when we were there. I was on his podcast yesterday.
Yeah,
And,
he was on mine. He was on mine a couple weeks ago. I'm gonna be on his too. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I gave him the idea. He was like, "I'm gonna do what you do."
Yeah. No, that was great. I think he had Andy on last night. He's gonna have Coach Burton on here in the next couple of days. So that's gonna be pretty exciting. I can't wait to see those. I know for me, one of the biggest things with that is when you recruiting for Division I and you get somewhere and you're an assistant coach or your junior college D2, whatever your level is, one of the things you have to remember is you're not recruiting for yourself. You're recruiting for that head coach. And you have to remember that sometimes when you recruit a player and you think he's really good and he's really great, you have to make sure that that player mixes with that head coach. Because if they don't, then you won't get the most out of that player. And you won't get the coach won't enjoy coaching him, the player won't enjoy playing for him. It can absolutely be an absolute mess. So I know for me, when I try to recruit these kids to play, I try to really spend a lot of time, listen to what my head coach wants, an idea of the type of players that he wants. And I try to go out there and fit that to the T. And fortunate enough for me, man, I've been able to do that at the stops that I've been at. We've had some success, but the success isn't just me. It was also the guys that I work with on the staff that embodied and embraced that philosophy as well too.
That's cool. So let's go back now. I'm gonna go back to you as a head coach. What was your initial focus when you got the job at Redlands? What was the first thing you wanted to do?
I wanted to get the culture back to what it was. When I was there as a player, I was 62-8 in 2 years. We had 13 Division I basketball players, if I'm not mistaken. We were absolutely loaded. But I wanted to get it back to the place where it was respected. It was a different job from when I was there too. Like financially, the job had changed. It was just completely different when I got there. And so there was a lot of um, we went out and got guys that wanted to be a part of something special, that believed in what we were talking about. And we had, just quite honestly, we got some guys that were hungry. And we went out and just got the hungriest guys who wanted to be a part of something special. And I tell you what, it was pretty cool because we had got to the point and we weren't able to financially compete with anybody else. But we started getting guys in Division 1, and you have no idea. Like, kids were coming to us by the boatload saying that they wanted to come play for us. They like how we operated. They like how we let our guys play. They were excited about how we were moving guys onto Division 1. And I know one of the things that I even to this day as an assistant coach as I move forward, man, I'm not here without the great players that I've coached through my life. And coaching for me is about the players. It's less about my coaching. It's more about those players. And when those players buy in and they decide they want to do something special, they decide that they want to do something unique. Now it's up to you to kind of put the plan in front of you. But at the end of the day, those players got to come together and say, hey, we want to win a championship. We want to sacrifice. We'll put our ego to the side. We want to compete, and so that was something that that I really, when we were at that level, that was something that we did.
So let's talk philosophy a little bit. What is your offensive philosophy, and what is your defensive philosophy, or what is it that y'all are doing at SMU? Or
yeah. So offensive and defensive philosophy, those things are fluid, and they're fluid because those things vary depending upon personnel. At this level, obviously you can recruit a little bit, but you can recruit what you can get. And when you get your team and you kind of look at the strengths, the weaknesses, you have to be able to be fluid and adapt to that. And you can't be so rigid to say, well, I've always done things this way, and you're not winning games. You got to be fluid. You got to be able to adapt. And you also got to be able to make real time on the fly choices and decisions about what you need to be able to do and adjustments that you have to make. But typically just always been a man-to-man coach, man-to-man defense coach. I know early on in my career, we forced everything baseline, rotated from the baseline, scrambled out that way, X'd out on the weak side on skip passes. Those kind of typically been it. Offensively, the game's changed so much. And even in the last, 5-6 years, I mean, this morning I was watching the 86 Western Conference Finals. It was the Lakers versus the Rockets this morning. And you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you got Ralph Sampson on the other end. You got Keem Olajuwon on the Rockets team. And you can see the concept of the game is getting a ball as close to the basket as possible and scoring it. And that's why big guys were so valuable back then, where now as the game has changed it to open the floor up, space it, attack the basket, either get layups or kicking the ball out for three-pointers, or repeatedly attacking the basket and trying to get to the foul line. Analytics has kind of changed our game to that. But I still like to mix in a little bit of both. I mean, I'm still, coming from the 90s. I think the mid-range game is still valuable. I think all the best guys who score the basketball have good mid-range games because you got to take the open shot. If somebody runs you off the three-point line and there's a big guy waiting in the middle of the paint for you, you got to be able to take the mid-range shot that's open and available to you. And so my philosophy, just offensively, share the ball, move the ball. Obviously, we have sets that'll get guys involved when you need it, but really like to get out and like to play fast. But, a lot of the pro stuff that you see guys doing, spread pick and roll action. When I was at Louisiana Tech, we were a big spread pick and roll team. We really attacked the tags and really put people in a situation, put some people in bind. So, it's kind of varies from place to place that I've been. And I'm kind of encompassing all three places. When I was with Coach Wilson at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, we ran a lot of really good stuff. We were very detailed. Our kids could explain to you our offense and defense inside out. And so those are all some of the things I've taken with me through my whole career.
Practice time. I know practice is important. In college, you get a little bit more leeway. High school, we only get that 2.5, 3 hour slot. Talk about how much time you took to prepare for a practice or being at SMU, because everybody knows SMU. So talk about how long it takes y'all at SMU to prepare for one practice.
So that's a great like question. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about being here. So we're at SMU, and we've got, all of us got our own individual offices, and coaches got his own office. But then we also have like a meeting room upstairs. And so right about 10:30, we'll all kind of go back there and meet. We'll kind of get in there. We get in there about 8:30 or so, start our day, 8:30, 9 o'clock, right around there. We'll start our day, try to get our stuff together. And then we'll all kind of meet in the office around 10:30. And we start talking about practice throughout the day. And we start talking about things that we need to get better at. We're watching film, and, we'll all watch film about practice every day. And so there may be some clips, and there may be some situations that we want to talk about. And we put it up on the TV screen, and we'll talk through it as a staff. And one of the things I really enjoy being here is that everybody's opinion is valuable. There's no I'm right, you're wrong. And I've enjoyed just the conversations that we have about our team, about our program, about different situations and scenarios. And we're always talking and working those things out on a daily basis. And everybody's opinion is welcome. And it's something I really enjoy, because I've heard other places where it's not like that. And I've really enjoyed that since I've been here.
That's good to talk about, because as an assistant coach, don't you want to feel like your opinion is valued? Because if it's not valued, why would you want to be there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But again, to be honest, but the wins and losses don't go on my record. You know what I mean? We all got great ideas. We've all got great ideas when you're sitting 2 or 3 seats over, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, I'm here to, I try to do a lot of research. I try not to just blurt stuff out just because I think it's a good idea. I try to look at the research. I try to look at the data. I'm on KenPom, looking at all this stuff on KenPom. I'm looking at synergy film. I'm looking at past styles. And so it's, when I make a suggestion, it's pretty detailed and it's pretty thorough. And it's on the experiences that I've had in my other stops that I've had in my career. It's on the research that I've kind of looked through and developed and stuff. So, usually when I try to give my opinion, and I don't try to give it all the time, I just kind of give it when I feel like it's needed. And when I think it's something that is important and pertinent to the situation, I offer it up, but I make sure I've got stuff to back it up so it's solid.
So with that, while we're still talking practice, the timing, obviously y'all meet and talk throughout the day, but how do you use the film to decide what you're going to focus on in practice, or do you go off of the needs of the players and what the coaches are saying based off of what they saw the day before?
Sure. And again, I think it's so tricky because, again, like everything is fluid. So, the way the seasons go, there's so many ebbs and flows in the season, excuse me, that, like sometimes what you were working on in the beginning of the year was different. Like I use our situation as an example. Jamal, you remember my senior year, your junior year. Was that your junior year or sophomore year? Junior
That was my junior year, yeah.
Yeah, so my senior year, your junior year, if you remember the beginning of the year, we got this full roster. We're playing man-to-man defense. We're pressuring. We're all up in the passing lanes. Then we lose Lloyd before the season starts.
Right.
Hardy gets hurt in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, what we did then changes. Now we're playing 2-3 zone because we got to pack it in. We've got to slow other people down. We can't let people be so comfortable. We're kind of mixing up defenses a little bit. And so you got to be fluid like that and understand what is the needs of your team and to be able to adjust to that. And the people who are capable of adjusting to the needs of their team will be the guys who are most successful.
Yeah, we had to adjust a lot because we were 8 or 9 deep and we went to 6 deep.
Yes.
And that meant that meant me, you, LB, Jermaine and Ralphie were playing 30. All of us were playing 34, 35 minutes plus.
No question.
And it was hard. I know when we beat Oregon State at Oregon State.
Yeah.
I think when we went to overtime, I think all starters clocked 40 minutes or better.
No question.
And I give Coach Burton, we didn't get along that great because, I loved Coach Burton. I respected him and all that. But I got to give him credit because he was able to adjust a team that he had put together and envisioned for us to have 8, 9, 10 deep. And then he had to redo everything and go back to just playing 6 deep. And then we were still able to get to the third round of NIT.
Yep.
That was real good for us. my next question. How important to you is individual workouts? Like, I know for me, when I got to Western Kentucky and then out to Cal State Fullerton, I know that for me, I felt like my individual game was developed more in the individual workouts, because obviously when you're playing 5-on-5, you're not going to be able to do all the moves that you want to do. And in practice, it's a lot of stop and go they're teaching. But I felt like my game got better because I had to compete against you. And then there was days I was guarding Ralphie. And there was days we were playing 2-on-2. Our individual workouts were competitive because we all could play and we all were competitive. So how important is that to you, or to
I think individuals are really, really important. I think that you've got to invest in your own game. You got to. You've got to put sweat equity into your own game. And you got to go out there, push yourself, challenge yourself. And you got to allow people to be able to push yourself and challenge yourself. I'm, probably much like the rest of the world, the basketball world, I've been watching The Last Dance. And, everybody's enamored with what Michael Jordan has done on a basketball court. But I think one of the things me personally, I remember was that there was always a time where for Michael Jordan that people said he couldn't do this, and he always came back each year and was a little bit better. Oh, Michael Jordan couldn't shoot. He came back and made 3-pointers. Well, Michael Jordan can't dribble. Well, he came back handling the ball, playing the point for portions of the season. Well, Michael Jordan couldn't win. He couldn't guard, and he became defensive MVP of the year of the league. So I always think about those situations, those scenarios that, like, whatever your weakness is, you got to work on in the offseason. But the other thing that I want to cautious on is that you can't be a guy or girl who just goes out there and just works out, and doesn't do anything with, you don't go out there and compete against other people out there on the basketball court. You have to. Thank you. And so you got to be able to go out there and you got to be able to compete on a basketball court. One of my favorite movies is a quote by Bruce Lee. And like, this guy's putting on his martial arts display and he's jumping up and he's kicking and breaking these boards. And then the guy looks at Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee says to him, boards don't hit back. Cones don't steal the ball. Cones don't box out. Chairs don't hit you on screens. And so you got to make sure that you can play, and you got to make sure that stuff that you're doing with those cones, with those chairs, or with that individual workout, that stuff actually real life applies to basketball. And you got to be able to incorporate that stuff within a team concept. I don't care how many times and how high you can jump in the layup line, all that stuff. If that stuff doesn't translate on the basketball court and you can't do it in the game, that stuff's useless.
Very. When you group your individual workouts, I've never, and every time I've asked this question, it's been a different answer. And some have answered it a roundabout way, some answered it straight up. I've never understood how coaches group their individual workouts. Like, sometimes it would be, I played 5 for us, obviously. Sometimes it would be me in a workout with you, Ralphie, and Jermaine. And I'm like, why am I in this workout? I'm the only post player in here. And then sometimes it might be all 4 post players and you, that's a guard, that ended up eventually being our 4-man. But how do you decide how you group your individual workouts? I think my Coach Felton said he did it off a grade based on age. So he would do seniors with freshmen sometimes, all seniors, all freshmen, so on. But how do y'all do it, or how do you do it?
Well, I like just like instance for you, even though you played the 5 for us, like, and that was out of necessity. We had you and Hardy after Lloyd went down, and we had Derek play some 5 for us, but primarily you and Hardy manned the 5 for us. And like I said, again, a lot of that was out of necessity, but you were a guy that could dribble, pass, and shoot. You were easily a 4-man that had three-man skills that could do a lot of different things. You could go inside and outside. And I think it was good for your game. It was one of the things that made us so difficult to guard, was that you have 5 guys out there on the floor who could pass, dribble, and shoot. And with the way the game is going these days, I would still encourage bigs to be able to do all types of workouts, to be able to, you don't have to be able to cross over, but you got to be able to handle the basketball. You got to be able to reverse the basketball, take 2 or 3 dribbles into a dribble handoff. You know what I mean? If you got to be able to advance the ball, if the outlet's being denied, you got to be able to advance the basketball up the court 4 or 5 dribbles and be able to make an entry pass. You just can't be completely useless out there in the basketball court if you're in a situation that you're uncomfortable and unfamiliar in. And I know for us grouping workouts, a lot of times we'll do them and we'll put guards, kind of 0.2s in a group. We'll put 3s in a group, maybe a few, 4s that kind of have guard skills, and put them in with the wings. then we'll have the bigs all working out together. But sometimes we'll mix the groups up and we'll simulate portions of our offense. And so let's say, for instance, we've got a wing in a corner. We've got a point guard at the a point guard at the wing, and we've got the big coming up to set a ball screen on the wing, and it's a side pick and roll. Point guard's coming off the middle, and he's attacking. We'll have the big rolling to the rim, and we'll have the guard lifted up. And so what we'll do is we'll have somebody pass the basketball on the other side, simulating the point guard, passing it to the big. He's rolling to the rim, getting the dunk. And we'll really have particular passes that we'll want that point guard to work on. We'll have him throwing a hook pass, to the guy lifting up out of the corner, or we'll have him stop, pivot, and throw it with his outside hand, which sometimes is your left hand, depending upon what side you're going. So you've got all of those skills that you're working on right there to make you a well-rounded basketball player. So mixing groups up are good to simulate portions of your offense.
As a coach, even going back to Redland, even now, just like, what are your two most important characteristics as a coach? I know that you said you got into it to be a mentor, to help kids, and coaching, coaching, being able to be around the game is actually the bonus. But the main reason was to be a mentor. But what are your two most important characteristics that you got that, that stand out the most, like, to people?
I think the first one has got to be relationships. So you have to develop relationships with your players. And when I talk about relationships, I'm not talking about you being someone's best friend and you being buddy-buddy with them. I'm talking about you getting to know that player inside and out, that player being comfortable with talking to you about any and everything. And I'm talking about things that may even make you uncomfortable, but really getting to know that player and finding out what makes them tick. And a lot of times those relationships, they take place not in the office, sometimes in the gym, but a lot of times you have to do that out of the office. And you've got to get yourself out of your comfort zone. You got to get out of the office and you've got to spend some time with those guys. It's like sometimes knowing what guys' class is getting out and meeting them in between class, going to lunch with the player, maybe inviting the player over to your house and spending some time with them. And, me being, having a family, I like to coach and recruit kids with my family. I want my wife to know the kids. I've got 2 daughters. So I want those guys to see me in a light dealing with my own kids, dealing with my wife in the interactions that we're having with the family, because sometimes kids don't ever get to see those positive environments. I know I was a single parent student athlete. And so getting the opportunity to see some of the people that I've been around in my life and seeing them interact with the good positive relationships played a huge portion, a huge influence in my life. And so relationships is one of them. And then the other one I would say is communication and being able to effectively communicate to people. And that's being able to understand and hearing all sides of the story. I think sometimes communicating is knowing sometimes you got to let stuff go. Sometimes you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, like that old song. Sometimes you have to just shake your head just to get somebody to move on, but you've got to be able to effectively communicate and you've got to be able to have great relationships. See, if you got great relationships with people, that allows you to be able to coach people how you need to coach them. So Jamal, if I'm coaching you and I've got a great relationship with you, the things that I'm telling you are never personal. So you take it in a different way. That I'm not out here trying to intentionally hurt you. That things aren't malicious. So that I care about you. So the stuff that I'm telling you hits a little bit different. And then you've got to be able to communicate it across to them because you got to be able to give it to them in a way that they could digest. So like if they can't digest this information, it doesn't even matter.
Well, the question I got for you is, I'll say that one to last. So okay. Oftentimes it says, next to last, oftentimes it said that, I think every interview I've gone on, even at the high school level, every interview I've gone on, they've asked me, it's oftentimes said that a team takes on the identity of a coach. What is the identity of a Yaphett King coach team?
Resilient. That means that, no matter what the odds are, you're going to bounce back. I think through all the things that I've faced in my personal life, all the things that I've overcome, I'd like to be able to pass on resiliency to my team. I like to pass on toughness. I'd like to pass on, a team that's, that overachieves. I've overachieved a lot in my life. And so I think overachieving is something that I'd like my team to be known for, that always gets better. And a team that loves and loves to play basketball. And then also just has a great respect and affinity for just people, and like just caring about your teammates, caring about your coaches, and having strong relationships.
What you already said what your favorite defense and offense are. We can attest to that. So do you aspire to be a head coach again?
Yeah, I would love to. I actually appreciate this opportunity and this platform to be able to talk. My dreams are, I dream the biggest dreams. I dream the biggest dreams. I want to win an NCAA championship. I want to put myself in a position to win an NCAA championship. And, and there's steps and processes that I got to go through it. And this is a part of it, but I definitely want to become a head coach, and I definitely want to win an NCAA championship. But more importantly, I want to do a great job at the job that I'm at right now. I think the biggest one of the things that people get caught up into is you're always worried about the next job. You're always worried about making more money. You're always looking for the next situation. Man, listen, I want to do the best job I can here at SMU, because if I don't do a great job at SMU, that means I don't get an opportunity to do and reach my goals. So I'm here to support Tim Jankovich at SMU reach his goals and reach his dreams. And as a result, man, it'll open up a door to give me an opportunity to reach my goals and dreams.
For young kids that may see this video, because it's going to go up on Facebook. I have a friend request into you, so you can add me, Coach Jay Brown, and then it'll be on your page. It's also going to go on my YouTube channel. So anybody that may view this video, whether it's tomorrow, 5 years from now, what advice would you give a young coach that's aspiring to get in the game, no matter the level? What would you tell them?
I would think, one of the things, to get to this point, I think, you look at a lot of coaches, and whoever your coaches that you may admire, you may aspire to be like, or who you see and you say, hey, I'd love to have that opportunity. You got to realize that there was a journey for that coach to get to where they're at. And that journey in the beginning sometimes is not very glamorous. I was a junior college head coach in El Reno, Oklahoma. I would have never in a million years thought I would have lived in El Reno, Oklahoma, man. Listen, I was in El Reno, Oklahoma. My first job, I think I made $1,000 a month. Maybe I made 15, somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did make a ton of money. It wasn't a glamorous position, but at that time I was so excited and I was so happy to be there. That was the best job. And I remember when I went with my boss and we went to Cali County, and I think I got a raise and I was making $20,000 a year. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I was like, man, hey, now no more Taco Bell. I can actually go to Applebee's and Chili's now, And so and just so, when you're going through this process, you got to understand, like, you got to do a good job at the place that you're at. You got to be a good steward of what you have before you can get more. And so just like, when you get into it, don't turn your nose up in any situation. Sometimes it may not be the glamorous situation, but if you do a great job of where you're at, you'll get an opportunity because people will find your work. I was watching The Last Dance, and I know I keep referencing that. Man, I didn't know Phil Jackson worked in Puerto Rico.
I didn't either.
Me neither. And then I think he was in Albany in the CBA, and they found him and put him in a position with the Chicago Bulls, and later eventually groomed him to be the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. And he's one of the most well-known coaches of all time. And so there's lessons to be learned at every stop that you're at. So make sure while you're there, you're not so focused on moving on. You're not so focused on the next thing, that you're there learning your lesson. And when you learn your lesson, you get an opportunity to move on from there.
I'm going to ask a question.
All right.
Who is the GOAT? Jordan, LeBron, or Kobe?
I think it's I think there's some other guys you gotta put in there too. You can't forget, I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has the best basketball resume of all time. And there's so many great players out there. I just like to appreciate all of those guys for the greatness that they've done right now and all their contributions to the game, because they all have greatness in their own way. I think Kobe Bryant is great. I think Tim Duncan is great. Kim Olajuwon is great. I mean, Isaiah Thomas, who's one of my favorite players growing up of all time. There's so many people that are great, and greatness has a lot of layers to it. I just want to appreciate all of those guys for their contributions to the game.
Yeah, it is. I have that conversation sometimes, and I tell them my perspective of it. Like I told I think Kobe and Jordan made their teammates great because of how hard they worked. Wasn't necessarily with their passing because they weren't the greatest passers. I mean, they averaged some assists, but LeBron can make you better with passing and just his all-around game. So, and then of course Kareem, the unstoppable sky hook, you can never forget that. And then Magic, who could play 1 through 5. Bird, who could shoot the cover off the ball. You had a lot that went on there. But man, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out your day to get on live with me. I'm gonna pull us off live, and then I'll still chat with you. I appreciate everybody tuning in for this edition of Full Court Press with Coach Jay. I will be back today at 3:00 with Coach Dion Bethea. Most of you watching know who that is. He's 3-time state champion at Gray Collegiate here in South Carolina. Really appreciate you tuning in. Tune back in at 3:00.